You're listening to the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast, episode number 14. So my kids are teenagers, but when I left my ex-husband, my oldest was 12 and my youngest was 8. I knew it was going to be really tough for them at any age to go through a divorce, but they were still young and I was really afraid. And in my particular situation, we were going to be sharing 50-50 custody of the kids. There wasn't a record of domestic violence. And being the victim of emotional abuse, I had hardly any evidence to prove that he was an abuser because, as you probably know, the courts only care about what you can prove. So I knew that when I left him, my kids would still have to be around him 50% of the time, and that frightened me. I didn't know what they'd be exposed to with their dad, and I knew I had no control over what he said or what he did while they were with him. So naturally, this caused me some really major anxiety, and I was constantly worried. I was worried he would manipulate them and guilt them and control them, and I was worried he would gaslight them and treat them badly. I was worried that he was going to abuse them just like he abused me. And I was worried he would try to turn them against me too. And I was afraid that my kids might turn out to be abusers themselves or end up in relationships with abusers. I had so many fears because I was sending these kids back into the lion's den that I escaped from. And it really made me sick. So if you have felt like this too, because you share custody with your ex or your ex-narcissist, ex-abuser, I want you to know this is completely normal to feel this way. We love our children. We desperately want to protect them. We want to watch them grow up and be physically and emotionally healthy and happy little humans. If you believe your child or children's other parent is a narcissist or an emotional abuser, then in today's episode, I'm going to share with you some things that I learned to help my children that you can use to help yours too. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to help you heal after a toxic or narcissistic relationship. This podcast teaches you to use your subconscious mind to go from feeling stuck to set free. In here, you will learn how to use the power of your own mind to free yourself from emotional pain, move forward with confidence, and experience the inner peace you deserve in your healing journey after emotional abuse. I'm your host and subconscious reprogramming coach, Allison Dagny. So let's get started. All right, so the focus of today's episode is really going to apply mostly to those of you who have young children, not necessarily adult children. The reason for this is because our young children really have no choice. They can't get away from their toxic parents even if they wanted to. Adult children in most cases can set boundaries and decide for themselves if they want to have a relationship with their narcissistic parent or not. So for this episode, I will be focusing on young children and how you, as their healthy parent, can help them. Now, I need to add that if your children are being abused and harmed by their other parent, you can still do these things, but you should also consult your attorney about what to do if you suspect or know abuse is happening. I am not a therapist or a legal professional, so my tips are solely based on my own personal experiences and what worked for me in my situation. So first we need to remember that when a child is born into this world, they have no idea who their parents will be. They are these innocent, pure, and perfect little beings without a care in the world. For some of these kids, their parents will be loving and kind and doing their very best to care for and raise them up. For others, they won't be so lucky. I believe that every child deserves love and compassion from their parents. Sadly, though, many kids are going to be exposed to and raised in homes with abuse. So what can we do and how can we help as a healthy parent? When I first realized that I was being emotionally abused, I knew that I had to get out in order to help my children. So you might be asking, yeah, but if you leave and you share custody, aren't the kids going to take the brunt of the abuse from the other parent? And of course, that was a really big fear of mine. And I will say this, each situation is different and there is no judgment. If you believe your kids are safer with you staying in the relationship, then that is a decision you have to make as a parent to protect them. But for me, after I thought about it, carefully considering all the angles, I realized that my kids would never be able to see a healthy model of parenting as long as I was still living with their dad, who was my abuser. I knew they would never see what a healthy relationship should look like either. If I stayed allowing my abuser to continue to hurt me while my children were looking on, what was I teaching them? Again, there's no judgment here. I know that everyone needs to evaluate their own personal situations completely. I know that one person's decision isn't going to be the same as someone else's. What is critical is thinking through all the scenarios, all the benefits and all the consequences, and then making the best decision that you can. But if you have decided to leave and your kids are still with your abuser for any amount of time, you can still help them, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So the goal of being a parent is to raise up our kids to be these well-adjusted, good, healthy humans. And I think most parents would say this is what they want for their kids. If they go on to be financially successful, if they go on to be philanthropists or scientists or hard workers or whatever else, fill in the blank, great, all the better. But first and foremost, I believe that most parents just want the best for their children. Unless you're an abusive narcissist, and then they just really want what's best for themselves. So how can we help our kids when they are still in contact with a narcissistic parent? When you share legal custody with a narcissist, your children will still be subjected to the abuse in some form or fashion. It might not be as severe as what you dealt with, but it could be as bad or it could be worse. So if you have a pen and paper, I'd invite you to get that out now because I have 6 tips to share with you to help your children through this. Number 1, provide a safe, harmonious place for your child. The home of a narcissist is going to be chaotic. There's going to be tension, fighting, emotional unrest, guilt, manipulation, criticism, controlling behavior. These are all very difficult things for any person to deal with, let alone a child. At your house, maintain a place free from chaos. Offer them open communication. Offer them calm and lots of love. They will feel safer and happier with you. I can remember when my kids would come home after several days of being at their dad's, and they would be so cranky and rude. They were stressed and fighting with each other, and when they left my house, they weren't like this. I didn't send them off in these horrible moods, but they came back to me a complete mess. And I was in shock every single time this happened. What is happening over there that they are coming back acting this way? Usually within a few hours, they'd calm down. They were back to their normal selves again. But I noticed this pattern, and I wanted to combat it. The combat was just providing them with a safe and calm place for them to be. I limited the things that would cause them stress. I let them have wind down time instead of bombarding them with questions or information, chores, conversation, things like that. I just let them ease into the comfort of my home with no expectations and no stress. This was so important because they were basically coming to me with this really bad energy. The days leading up to being with me had them on edge because they were with their dad. So instead of allowing that energy to grow, I gave it space to dissolve so that they could regulate their emotions on their own terms. This really is such a simple step to help your kids. Just give them some space to decompress. Number 2, set boundaries. I love boundaries. If you have heard any of my podcast episodes, you will know that I like boundaries. This is a really good one, but it might be difficult for you. I know it was really difficult for me at first because I was really bad at boundaries a long time ago. You might feel bad for your child because they're getting this emotional abuse at the narcissist's home, so you're hesitant to set and hold boundaries or deal punishments out or consequences. But the one thing I've learned is that the abuse is not an excuse to back off on being a parent. When I spoke to my therapist about this, she told me that children thrive on structure and consistency. It helps them to know what's going to happen next. They feel more secure knowing what to expect. It makes their life more predictable, which then increases their feelings of security. And security to a child means safety. So here's what you do. Lay the rules out, communicate them clearly, and then stick to them. Your child is probably going to resist this at first, as most kids will, but the long-term outcome is that your child or your children will actually feel better about having this type of parenting in their life. Why? Because the unpredictable environment at the other house leaves them feeling anything but secure. They'll begin to know that when they're with you, there are rules and consequences, but that also means they can predict easily how you will react or respond. And their ability to predict what comes next makes them feel in control and safe. I want you to know, I know just how hard this is. I know that when your kids are behaving badly because of what happened to them at the other house, you just want to comfort them and give in to their demands. But for me, that never worked. Parenting from a place of calm where my children could anticipate easily what to expect helped them feel really a lot more secure. They actually then want to be at my house more. They have literally told me how they can feel a difference from one house to the next. They sink into the relief of the home environment that I've created for them. And you can create this kind of environment too. And maybe you already have, but if not, it's not too late. Boundaries are a really good way to help your children feel safe. Okay, so number 3 is understanding these outbursts and the emotions that they have. Because many children are constantly controlled, manipulated, and criticized at the narcissist home. They are likely to lash out at you or other people while they're at your house because of this. When the child is forced to be on their best behavior to avoid being criticized, controlled, abused, you name it, their only outlet typically becomes you, the safe parent. So like I talked about before, I have seen this so many times. My kids come back to my house after a 3-day weekend with their dad and they are fighting with each other, crabby, snippy with me. They're, the attitude problems, telling me no. They're exerting their power in a place they feel like that they can do this. Their power and identity is pretty much non-existent at the narcissist home. So once they get back to a place of security, they are inevitably going to unleash that on you. As the parent, you're really taken aback by this because you're providing the happy place, yet you're getting the brunt of the frustration. So this takes me back to number 2, which was setting boundaries. Understand why they're acting out, but also set the boundaries. Regardless of how you feel about it in the moment, you're actually doing your children a favor by not allowing that bad behavior in your home, even if it's being caused by an outside source. So just try to come from a place of understanding. We so often think of things from our personal perspectives as adults. I provide a good home for them and look how they treat me, right? I've said it before myself. Instead, try looking at it from their vantage point. Try putting yourself in their little shoes. They're the ones going back and forth, dragging things from home to home and adjusting from one parent's house to another. So understanding their emotions from their perspective can be really, really advantageous for you as a parent and help your children. Number 4, don't make it about you. My oldest daughter, who at the time was almost 15 years old, she's 16 now, uses sarcasm a lot. My therapist explained to me that sarcasm is just a mask for anger, that most times kids have no idea they're even holding on to anger. They recognize an opportunity to lash out, and then comes the sarcasm. There's a message behind the sarcastic remark. The message isn't to insinuate that you're stupid, even though it might seem like that initially. So let me give you an example. So my daughter came home from school one day and I said, "Hey, how was school?" And she said, "Oh, it was fun. We had a fiesta at school today." And I said, "Oh, that sounds fun. Was that in your Spanish class?" And she said, "No, Mom, in my English class," and then, rolled her eyes. So I just sat there, and my own trauma and my own triggers in that moment made me believe this comment was her calling me stupid. Here's the thing. It was a fiesta. Why would she have a fiesta in English class? That was a really silly question for me to ask. But was it? no, it really wasn't. It was just me asking for clarification, me trying to communicate with my daughter and show interest in her day, only to be slapped back with sarcasm. Once I recognized my own insecurities about this and understood her underlying anger, I was able to more effectively navigate this. So here's what I would do next time when my curiosity and desire as a parent to connect with my children is met with sarcasm. So I might say, hey, how was your school day today? And she says, oh, it was fun. We had a fiesta in school today. And then the same thing repeats, oh, fun in your Spanish class. And then she says, no, Mom, in my English class, and rolls her eyes. So what I could respond with is, are you feeling okay today? Ask her about how she's feeling, if she's having emotions. And she might just come back with something like, I'm not angry or I'm not upset. No, I was just making a joke. So I then could explain to her that, sarcasm is a way that people like to hide their anger sometimes and they don't realize it, and just expressing it in an unhealthy way. So if you want to talk more about it, just let me know. And that really just kind of gets her to think and plants a little seed. There might be more sarcasm that comes after that, but it's not me getting into an argument with her about it at that point, because I understand where it's coming from and why she is having that sort of thing. Now, I'm not saying that if your kids are continually being disrespectful, that you need to always meet it this way. You need to do what you feel like is best for your kids and you as a parent. But my point about this is to not make it about you, not make this sarcasm about you. When you make it about you, the feelings get hurt and people start arguing and words get said that you can't take back. So recognize that what your children do and how they behave is because of their programming. Their wiring in their mind from the day they were born and all their experiences, that is why they behave the way they do. It isn't about you. So try taking yourself out of the equation. As long as you keep making it about you, there will be more conflict. So what are you making your children's behavior mean about you? If they behave badly, are you internalizing that? Or are you understanding that this is just their programming, their experiences, their filters of the world? Are you letting it bother you or frustrate you, ruin your day, thinking you must be a bad mom, or you're starting to think about your thoughts and coming to these realizations that it's just as possible that this isn't about you not being a good mom, but rather kids have outbursts and live in their own little selfish worlds that are totally about them. So we can deepen our relationships with our children when we remove the filters. We can foster healthier communication with our kids when we take our egos out of it. This takes some practice, but it's totally worth it in the end. So whenever you recognize an opportunity of something that brings up an emotion or something inside of you that you don't like the way it feels, try to take the emotion out of it. Try to take the meaning that you're giving it away so that you can respond to your kids with a more reasonable or less reactive type of communication. Number 5, give your children tools and outlets. So one thing I know is that my kids really despise the idea of therapy. I've offered it numerous times to them, and they did attend a couple of sessions, but I get it. It's awkward talking to a stranger about your feelings. So I don't feel that forcing them into a situation they are really just going to resist anyway will be super helpful. So enlist yourself in therapy or coaching. Help yourself first so you can give them the tools and outlets that they need by what you're learning. You may have heard the analogy about being on an airplane, and the flight attendant says that you need to put your own oxygen mask on before you start helping others. And this holds true for us as parents as well. You need to help yourself before you can help them in the ways that they need. So you might still be navigating your own healing from the narcissist and emotional abuse, but you have to remember the kids are still in the thick of it in many ways. Use your therapy and the tools that you learn from coaching sessions to get tips and ideas on how to help your children. Lead by example. Be the best version of you that you can so that you can show up in ways that provide them the best parenting possible. Give them that unconditional love the encouragement they need, praise for their effort and not their innate ability, and firm boundaries. If you've got really fidgety kids, try giving them things to fidget with instead of stifling them and making them stop. If they have trouble sleeping, maybe get them a noise machine or a weighted blanket or an essential oil diffuser for their room. If they're angry, enroll them in sports where they can kind of unleash that physical energy, karate or kickboxing or a punching bag in the basement. Just be creative. Use the tools that you learn for yourself to help them. Experiment and find what works because you are their parent, and trust yourself because only you know what's best for your child. Okay, so the big takeaway from this is that you can only control what goes on at your house. The work I do is totally focused on you. What I'm talking about today is how you can help your kids, but it really starts inside of you first. Let me just put it this way. It feels like you are detoxing your kids when they get back home to you. Think about it as if your children have been sent away to grandma's house, stuffed with candy and junk food for a week. They're just sitting around watching TV, playing video games, and they come home to you a cranky mess. You can only do what you can do when they come back. You can give them fruits and vegetables, water, fresh air, sunshine, exercise, playtime. So when it comes to the kids having a narcissistic parent, you are detoxifying your children from their time with the narcissist. This can be a frustrating cycle, but it doesn't always have to feel that way. I know it seems as if it never ends, but for me, I've become used to it. It's become part of my life and part of the lives of my kids. I can't control what goes on over there. I can only control what goes on here. So I do my best because those little innocent children who didn't get to pick their parents deserve the very best from me, and yours deserve the very best from you. So if you would like more support or to work one-on-one with me in my rapid reprogramming coaching, feel free to send me a message on Instagram or Facebook. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for being here with me today in the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast. I hope you found value here with me. If this podcast episode was helpful to you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe and leave me a review. My goal is to help you go from feeling stuck to set free. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, and you can check out whentearsleavescars.com for more resources and information to help you with your own emotional abuse recovery. Until next time, here's to believing in